May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. All of last year, I pondered whether I should adopt another dog to be a playmate for my dog, Dursey. So I did what I always do. I prepared a spreadsheet and measured all the costs that would be associated with having another dog and the extra time for walking and exercising and training and, well, you know, all the things that are involved in having a pet and caring for them responsibly. And there was one other issue for me. Dursey is a Vizsla. His breed is known for boundless energy. They're very trainable and they're very loyal. They're known as Velcro dogs because they sit where you sit, sleep where you sleep, and expect to be a part of everything you do. This morning, Dursey was sitting on the bath mat as I showered. It is, to say the least, a closely knit relationship. And I wondered how Dursey would feel if there was another dog vying for my attention. And all year long, I thought about the pros and the cons, but I never took an action. And then on January 2nd, just a couple of weeks ago, a neighbor sent pictures of a Vizsla mix, a dog that was about 2 years old and needed a home. Scrappy, as he had been named, had only ever lived in shelters. So on a whim, we set up a speed date for 1 hour at my home for Dursey and Scrappy. Well, I wondered, how will this go? Well, they were excited. They just ran endlessly for an hour. So when it was over, I said to the rescue group, if you will bring Scrappy back on Sunday afternoon when I get home from church, I'll give this a 48-hour trial period. By Monday evening, we had adopted Scrappy. The wedding story in Cana is well known. Mary will nudge her son to perform his first sign, a miracle that will reveal his relationship to God and also his own identity as the Son of God. She said, "They have no wine." He said, "Not my problem." And then he responded, "My hour has not yet come." Once the cat is out of the bag, as they say, there's no going back. Once people see who Jesus is, everything will change. And in that moment, Jesus hesitated. Mary persisted. She said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Well, week 1 with 2 dogs in my life was a roller coaster. There were manifestations of Scrappy's prior life, a fear that there wouldn't be enough food, a fear of riding in cars, a desire to run away with my dinner guests and half of my neighborhood in hot pursuit. Not once, but twice. We didn't have a shared language. Basic commands like sit, down, off, leave it, potty, were not part of his vocabulary. There were even disagreements between the dogs. But at the end of the week, after the finance committee concluded, I took them to a dog park. And I sat on the bench from a distance watching the dogs to see how they would interact with each other and with other dogs. And a group of dogs began to pick on Scrappy. He was the smallest dog there. One very large Labrador got on his back and was pushing him to the ground, and I was on my feet ready to go when Dursey intervened. He put his 2 front paws around that lab and pulled him off Scrappy. And then he positioned himself between the larger dogs and Scrappy. I realized that in the span of 1 week, the 2 of them had become a pack. Dursey welcomed the unexpected newcomer into his life all the way. He trusted that there was enough love to freely share his life. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And John is very specific about these jars. There are 6 of them. Some held 20 gallons of water, others held 30 gallons of water. So there's somewhere between 120 and 180 gallons of water brought to Jesus. Every gallon is equivalent to 5 bottles of wine. That means Jesus provided between 600 and 900 bottles of wine for a wedding banquet that's almost over. It was wildly extravagant. He told the servants, "Draw some of that wine out. Take it to the chief wine steward." The steward tasted it and was amazed. This was the very best wine served at the banquet, and not at the beginning of the banquet when people are still able to discern the quality of wine, but at the end, when consumption has dulled our senses and we can no longer discern between good and bad, need and want. Even then, God offers a new wine, a cup from God's own life. Jesus' first sign revealed the overflowing, abundant love of God. God's love is not just adequate to finish the banquet or just adequate to sate our human desire. It is more than we can imagine in every conceivable way. There was one other thing that held me back from adopting a second dog, something that did not fit on my spreadsheet, and something I hadn't really owned until I was thinking about this sermon. I love the relationship I have with Dircy. We are hiking partners. We speak each other's language. I don't even have to use words. I can just look at him and give a look, and he knows what I'm expecting. And deep inside, I was afraid our relationship would change. It took a couple of weeks for us to make the adjustments needed for Scrappy, and it is different for Dircy and me. Yet our lives are fuller than ever before. We have been changed in a good way. Today, we will gather for our annual parish meeting, and we'll celebrate the abundant generosity and love that has been showered upon St. Christopher's, and the ways we have shared that love with our neighbor. We are growing in so many ways. Throughout 24, we focused on our stickiness quotient, our desire and our ability to welcome people into our congregation and help them connect their passions with our ministries and even introduce new ministries to us. I saw that in action last week. Several leaders presented an idea for 2025. They had a game plan for new leadership of existing committees, a game plan to develop successor leadership for those committees, new people with new ideas and energy. Those folks aren't walking away from their committee life. They love what they're doing, but they are making space and welcoming new leadership, allowing vision to emerge. It is that kind of forethought and leadership that will help us continue to thrive. Every time we open our arms and welcome people into the life of this congregation, we are changed. We taste the extravagance of God's love, and our lives are fuller than we could have imagined. With thanksgiving for the calling and the people of this community. Amen.
Thank you.